Okay, we're gonna see how lights work in Unity. I'm gonna add here to the scene a few lights. I'm gonna start with a directional light. Remember always to reset your objects when you add them. Now, the position of the lights doesn't matter for directional lights to see how they influence the scene. What really matters is the orientation. So the orientation of the light. So if we rotate this one, you can see how this light is actually affecting this scene. Okay, lights have a light component. So this light component can be seen here, and the component has multiple properties. The properties actually depend on the type of light. So the first attribute here is the type. We selected directional, but you can also change it to spot, point, or area. The color specifies obviously the color of the light, so I'm going to give it a green color to this light. Mode, this specifies how the light is computed by Unity. So if it's real time, Unity is going to calculate on runtime the effect of this light on the scene. If it's baked, it's going to be baked into the light map, and I'll mention that a little bit later. But essentially, that means that the Unity is going to be pre-computing all the lights, and these lights are not going to change during the game. Okay. Mixed, you can see more information about this in the manual, but essentially it's a light mode that allows you to let Unity take care of certain parts of the computation by default at the beginning, but then this light also can change in runtime. So it does a mix between real-time and baked. You can also see the indirect multiplier, but this also affects the light mapping. So light mapping is composed basically of two types of light, the direct and the indirect mapping lights, and this essentially indicates how much this light contributes to the indirect lighting of this particular light. Again, this is quite advanced, so you can also look at that in the manual. Something else that you can do is shadow types. Again, I'll mention more about shadows later on, but in general, you can have either hard or soft shadows. You can see at the moment this green light is not producing any shadows. These shadows over here come from this object lights over here. So if I just disable these lights with the lights of the game, you see that there are no shadows here, but they can come back and then produce some shadows. And you can see that now the green light is producing some shadows in the game. Okay, I'm gonna set it back to original view and eliminate the shadows over here. You have the cookies. I'll mention about cookies in a second, but there are other common components like creating a halo in the light or creating a flare in the lenses of the camera. So you can specify that here. You have a rendering mode as well that indicates how is this light going to be rendered. So automatic is the default value, but you can decide this light to be either important or not important, and this is going to vary how Unity is going to treat and process these lights in runtime. The important ones will be for those lights that you want in your game to be very clearly shown, so they're going to be essentially pixel perfect, while the non-important ones they can have some abstractions. They can be processed in a way that is not pixel perfect, which saves some computation time, but at the same time it should be used for lights that are not very important in the game. And of course, as many other components, as a cooling mask. So the cooling mask allows you to define which layers these lights affects you. So I can, for instance, decide to not affect the pickups, and it's actually not very visible here, but I can just again remove these lights over here, and you can see now that these the pickups are black. So I can just if I decide to put them back again, you can see how the light affect these particular cubes. Okay. Okay, that's for directional lights. You can also have the spotlights. So the spotlights, as you can see, they have this shape. Again, now here is very important where the lights are located. So I'm just gonna reset it again, which I think is pretty useful. I'll put them in this orientation and move them a little bit up. If I can do this, there you go. You can see how this light now is affecting this particular intersection between this cone and the floor, right? Again, you can change the colors. You can have different values for the colors. Maybe you can do it blue. You can modify the intensity. So it's more intense, stronger light, and you have the same sort of properties over here. Something else that you can change as well in the spotlights is the angle. So you can indicate how wide is this cone that affects the player. Okay, and the range tells you how far does this cone reach. If you change for a point light, what you have is essentially a sphere of influence of this light. So the light is gonna affect everything within this sphere. So as you can imagine, there is a parameter range that allows you to identify specify how big this sphere is, and then you can indicate how the light affects the scene. Let's give it an orange value, for instance, to this one. Again, you can change the intensity. So one thing is the intensity, and I think is the range or the difference. So the closer the larger the range, that means that the closer to the center, the place where the light is affecting, the more intense is going to be. But you can also specify the general intensity of the whole light, right? And you can play with these values to reproduce the effect that you want. Now we're back to having different lights and different lights in the scene. So let's get back to having this light with it's a directional light. I'm just gonna move it a bit out of the way for what's coming next. I'm gonna just set the intensity a little bit less to 0.5 maybe. Okay, that's a light that allows us to see properly. As you can see here, you have these options here that are the cookies. So cookies are, in a way, ways of creating shadows with objects that are not creating those shadows. So it's a way to incorporate a shadow automatically to the actual light. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go into lights. I have a few different cookies here. So cookies are essentially textures. You can import images and then use them as cookies. So we have here three different cookies. These are essentially images. So if I just show this is an image. This is just an image, black and white image. Nothing different than that. Pretty simple. Now, when you click on one of these textures, you can see in the inspector what are the properties of this particular texture, right? And if you want to use a texture as a cookie, in the texture type, you would essentially set that as cookie. Okay. This shape of this cookie is a two-dimensional cookie. We're going to set it for spotlight. Spotlight and directional is very similar in this case because, well, as I mentioned before, this type of lights use these textures, the two-dimensional textures. Okay, this is going to tell you the alpha source is where to take the shadows from. So in this case, if we have this shape of this cookie, that's going to tell you, well, we want the white to be no shadow and the black to be shadow. You can directly take this information from the grayscale of the image, or you can change it for the alpha. If your image has the alpha channel set in agreement with these colors, then you can also use the alpha. For the moment, we're going to use the grayscale because that is definitely the case. In this case, we can just use the grayscale and it's going to work well. Okay, and there are quite a few other parameters here that we won't have time to go to. Again, you have all the information in the Unity manual, so you can go and check the different values. Okay. For rectangular cookies, this is essentially the same. So the spotlights cannot use rectangular cookies, so we're going to use this square shape cookie for directional light, and this and for spotlights, really a cookie that has a rectangular side, we can use that for a directional light, but not for a spotlight. And then you have this final type of cookie, which is the one that is used for point lights, and essentially this has this shape. It's essentially a cube map. So cube maps are specified in this particular shape, this cross-like shape, and with this type of image, we can also set it set it here. You can set the default or cookie for this case, but the important thing is that you specify that the texture shape is a cube. So it's not a 2D, it's not a two-dimensional image, it's a cube. So the idea is that this particular texture is going to wrap around like a cube the point light. So imagine that the point light is in the middle and this flaps close around, leaving the point light in the middle. And these images, the white and black, the shadow that is being generated here, that is what's going to be projected out of the light. And when it hits a surface, it's going to create those shadows in the particular surface that is hitting, right? For the mapping, the recommendation is that you set it to auto. So if this is a classical cube map, your cube map looks like this. With the set to automatic, then Unity will be able to identify where to do these cuts and how to wrap this texture around the point light. Okay, and again, there are many other ways of configure this. You have again the alpha source that could be either the grayscale or the texture alpha again, because this image is I know that it works, and I know that this black and white can be configured this way. The alpha channel in this image is not mapping the white and the grayscale of this image. Okay, so let's apply that now. So when you have directional light, you can essentially apply the texture here. So I'm just going to apply this cookie into this position. And as you can see, this cookie is essentially telling you where the map is. Now notice that for cookies, it is important to specify the position of the directional light. That is because the cookie is projected through this set axis, and you might want to have this in different places, right? And obviously the orientation would also matter. So if you change how this is oriented, the position of the cookie will also change, but also the orientation is if you move this around. Not sure if I'm close enough to show it, but yeah, essentially the cookie will be distorted. So you can play also with that and place it wherever you want and with the orientation that you need. Okay, you can see so the cookie also has a cookie size, so you may have to play with these values to locate it however as you want. But basically, having things like this allow you to have effects. Like obviously, this can be used as an effect of sunlight going through a window or the bars of a window, and you can get that effect without actually having an object that is creating the shadow in real time. In fact, you can also add this light pin to the baked ones, and then you would automatically have this color added. Essentially, this is just pixels color with particular values. So this added directly to your scene without having to recompute that at runtime. Okay, just gonna try now to add all the lights. I'm gonna move this one out of the way. I'll stick within a spotlight. Again, remember to reset it. I'll rotate it so we can see properly what's happening. Just set this to 90. Move it up. Oh, we have some light. I'll bring it to range, a little more of the final angle. I'll give it a bluish value, for instance. Okay, and then I'll just simply assign this cookie. Okay, as you can see, it's a similar effect to the one that the direction light is creating. Okay, so you can also use cookies in the spotlights. And finally, I'll create the final light, the point light. So point light, I'm gonna again reset it, set it here, add it up. I'll create a range, modify the intensity a bit, and I'm gonna give it maybe an orange like color. There you go. And then the cookie that I would use for this is this cookie. Okay, so texture shape again is a cube. Set this to auto, and then I'm going to apply that and then assign the cookie to the texture. Okay, and then you can play with the positioning, the different intensity until you can get the effect that you want. And so this light, the cookie would be projected onto any surface that this sphere is touching. Okay, applying this particular map around the point light.